yeah, they showed their patience and their experience. It makes a huge difference when you get a class player like Mitchell Moses back in the team, and not just what he brings in terms of his kicking game and his skills, but just his direction and calmness.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Billy Slater Podcast. All thanks to Tab. How are you, Billy?
I'm very well, thanks, Salty. And I think first and foremost, the most important thing over the Easter weekend is, did you get any Easter eggs, mate?
Yeah, managed to jag a couple, stole some off the kids, basically.
Absolutely. That's a must. I got a little Easter bunny myself.
Nice.
So, a bit of chocolate and a bit of footy over the round 7 Easter weekend, and there's some great games, and the two Easter clash, the Friday, obviously the doubleheader, in the NRL, and then obviously that Monday game yesterday was incredible.
Just amazing. An amazing game of football. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what happened over the weekend. Yes, there's a couple of little controversial moments we've got to touch on, but Billy, one thing I want to address with you before we look at the games is just some of the exploits from these great athletes. I think sometimes we take for granted as fans of the game, as commentators of the game, but boy, there was some good rugby league played over the weekend.
Yeah, and some of the younger players are really standing up now as well. And I was fortunate to be at Suncorp Stadium on Friday night, and Isaiya Katoa really taking his game to a new level. I'm very impressed with what he was delivering. I'm sure we'll get into that big win for the Dolphins over the Melbourne Storm. But you're right. These guys are the best at what they do, and it's a pleasure to watch every weekend. Look forward to the footy coming to our screens every weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you mentioned the Easter Monday clash where there was just so many subplots going into this one, whether it be the Lachlan Galvin situation, obviously, Mitch Moses back for Parramatta. The game evenly balanced at halftime, but that second half, what a rollercoaster ride that was. I mean, it was just a sensational game of footy, and take your hat off to the Eels for getting the win.
Yeah, it was evenly balanced with only 10 minutes to go, only a 2-point ball game. And I thought the Tigers were going to come over the top of the Eels, but yeah, they showed their patience and their experience. It makes a huge difference when you get a class player like Mitchell Moses back in the team, and not just what he brings in terms of his kicking game and his skills, but just his direction and calmness. Obviously got off to a really good start, and to score 38 points against a team that have been defending really well. The Eels, they haven't had too much to celebrate about this year, but they'll be pretty happy camp this week, and they'll be pretty happy to get their star halfback back on the field.
What about his performance? It wasn't just a case of him out there just directing traffic and easing himself in. That 40-20, an amazing 40-20 that it was, and I know he got penalised for it, but the try saver in the corner as well, he was involved in everything.
Yeah, well, that's what they bring, the good players and the experienced players. Like, he's played at the top level, and he's been around a long time, Mitch Moses, and it just shows you the difference that these sort of players make. And I think it's onwards and upwards for the Eels. They've just got that feeling now, and hopefully they can go on with it, because I know Jason Riles has been working really hard throughout the pre-season to instill some new habits into this footy team, and we're just starting to see the green shoots come through.
Billy, have you seen a better try-scoring save or try save than the Fox? Yeah, that was sticking the mid out. Yeah, went up in the air, and then he had the presence of mind and the speed to get to the ball before it hit the ground. And that's when you say that was at the period of time where the Tigers were really coming at Parramatta.
Absolutely. And look, I've always known that. I played a lot of footy with Josh Adokar, and we talk and we admire what he does with the football and his speed, and he's great at that. But he's a wonderful defensive winger, and he does a lot with his speed defensively. So it doesn't surprise me that the fact that he's aware of taking that intercept, and then obviously the ability to get there and not let it hit the ground and cause a knock on. So he's a wonderful player, and just spoke about Mitchell Moses and what he adds to the team. Well, Josh Adokar and his experience, not just with the football, but without it, is certainly something that they value at the Eels.
The West Tigers, it's a bit of a delicate part of the season for them. A lot going on off the field with Lachlan Galvin. How do you see this playing out now? Billy, watching in from afar. I know it's Teamless Tuesday already, so we'll have teams out later today for the West Tigers. But what's your gut telling you about what might transpire now at the club in the short term?
Well, I've no idea what's going to happen, but I know it's a mess. Like it's a mess, and it's really unfortunate because you got a young 19-year-old, star of our game caught in the middle of a mess, and I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it seems that communications have broken down that were had privately, and now it's become a public communication, which is really disappointing, and that it's got to this, and we've got a young 19-year-old's career that is being caught up in the middle of it. One thing I do know is when you're 19 years old, you're not making these big decisions. You're heavily advised by the people around you, and I don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know it's a mess.
Yeah, let's hope it gets sorted because, as you said, there's a 19-year-old right in the smack bang in the middle of all of this, and also too for long-suffering West Tigers fans, you don't want this to derail their campaign so early in the year.
Well, that's the interesting thing. You think about the fans, you think about the people who have stuck through the tough times with this footy team. That there's a footy team on their hands right now that there's a season that they're looking forward to. They're optimistic about potentially playing finals for the first time since 2011, and now this. So if I was a West Tigers fan, I'd be a little bit disappointed about how the situation is at the moment, because this could definitely be something that could derail their season. It could overshadow what they're trying to do on the field. And you've got one of your star players that is sitting out because of a political decision, really. This is not anything to do with form. This is not anything to do with his ability. This is to do with differences of opinion, and they're having conversations 18 months out, which is probably another conversation with the NRL that, needs to happen. And, for players to make decisions that far out from coming off contract is ridiculous, and then have repercussions like this around it. It's crazy.
Just one more on this one, Billy. It's there's a lot of clubs that this sort of situation may pop up in the background, and I'm not having a go at anyone individually here or anything like that in posing this question, but some really well-run clubs over the years, this sort of stuff wouldn't see the light of day. Would it? There's a couple of clubs over many years that you think, okay, I'm sure this sort of situation could have come about, but it just nipped in the bud so very quickly. It's strong admin sometimes is what's required. Yeah,
and just conversations. It's like any relationship. As soon as your communication breaks down, well, it's over, and that's what looks like has happened here. It's like there's been a communication breakdown. They've stopped talking, and then the talking's been done in the public eye now, which is quite disappointing. And you're right. If maybe different clubs, different situations, different ways of handling it, and there's support for both parties in this, and I just think it's disappointing that the game's going through this, and you've got a young player going through this as well, and I feel for the fans, I feel for the club, I feel for the player. There's got to be a better way to sort this situation out.
Well said. I'm sure a lot of people will certainly agree with you on that one. Let's get back to matters on the field. And We mentioned about just how good a few days it was over Easter. 65,000 fans. Well done to the Bulldogs, those $10 tickets. Outstanding having that sort of crowd at a core stadium for a game. And boy, didn't they produce as well for those fans, the doggies on Good Friday.
Yeah, it's a great atmosphere, isn't it? It doesn't matter where the Bulldogs play, whether it's Belmore or they three-quarters full fill a core stadium. It's, they bring a great vibe, the Bulldogs supporters, and they just keep ticking boxes, the Bulldogs. They've had one try scored against them since round 3. That's an incredible. We're round 7 now. We're post round 7, and they've had one try scored against them since round 3, and that's an incredible achievement. They're doing plenty right as a footy team. They've got a real good foundation to their game. And I don't know where they stop. I don't know whether they, should be the favourites for the competition or what. But it's a long way to go. But they're sitting nice and pretty at the moment.
They've done it with a bit of adversity too throughout the start of their season. They've missed key players as well, Billy, at times throughout. So. And we've spoken about it plenty of times over the first month and a half of the season about these different players that just, when they get that opportunity, they come in, they do their job for the team. So it's not as if it's been all smooth sailing for Cameron Ciraldo.
No, not at all. And I'll speak about that last month of footy, that they've only had one try scored against them. No Viliami Kikau and no Matt Burton through that period as well. So they've got them back. They're a team that don't rely on any one player, and they've got a whole. They haven't got any really big name stars. There's a few that I've just mentioned there, but they're not reliant on like a marquee number 7 or a marquee fullback or anything like that. They all contribute, and that's why I believe it's the basis of the game. It's the foundation of the game that they're doing really well, and it's working for them at the moment.
You mentioned them playing in front of big crowds. They'll play in front of another big crowd this Thursday night. We've only got to wait a couple of more days. How good is it doing this on a Tuesday after some Monday footy? We've only got a couple of days to wait, but it's Broncos Bulldogs this week, and I'm hearing that probably by tomorrow, the game will be a sellout. So if you're listening or watching us in Brisbane, get your tickets quickly because the Bulldogs army are out and about. Broncos fans are up and about as well, despite the loss. So this will be a big one on Thursday night.
Yeah, it will be. And the Broncos are a little bit out of form at the minute. I'm sure we'll get to the Broncos. I feel they've lost a little bit of their attack. I know they're trying to be more of a defensive team this year and just get a little bit more grit in their footy team, but they just lost that attack. So coming off the back of a disappointing loss over there in New Zealand, they'll be looking to bounce back real quick, and they're going to have to be pretty sharp because this Bulldogs team, they don't care who they're playing, they don't care where they're playing. They go out and put a lot of pressure on their opposition.
Well, let's talk about the Broncos then, Billy. They've got to do it if they're going to find something in attack in the next, 4 to 6 weeks. They're going to do it without Reece Walsh, who's got the knee injury, and it looks as though Selwyn Cobbo will line up at fullback against the Bulldogs on Thursday night.
Yeah, pretty handy replacement. Selwyn, he's a different type of fullback to Reece Walsh, but he adds different strengths to the footy team. So, not only do they have to look at trying to get their attack right and get it in sync, they've got to try and bring a different type of fullback into their game now. It's tough going. They've had a few injuries, especially in that back row position. But is that a couple of losses on the trot now?
Yeah,
that's
Roosters and
two
Warriors
in the
now.
row. And now you play the undefeated Bulldogs that are defending as good as any team in the comp has defended in the last decade. They're doing a great job. So maybe the big crowd, maybe the big atmosphere, the big game might just get the Broncos up and just get things clicking a little bit better.
When they made the comeback against the Warriors to force the game to Golden Point, Billy, did it largely when Ben Hunt shifted to hooker? Michael Maguire was changing a lot throughout the game, just searching for for answers? Is it a coincidence that things started to happen when Ben went into 9? What's your thinking there? Obviously, too, just on that before you answer, Ezra Mam still not available until round 10, so he's still a few weeks away.
Yeah, look, I think when you're in a situation like that, you just need to change things just to spark things up. And I think whenever Ben Hunt's got his hands on the footy, things can spark up pretty quick. So I don't mind that move occasionally is just pushing Ben Hunt into dummy half and allowing Adam Reynolds just to steer the ship. Billy Walters can go into the 6 role. And, yeah, it just changes things up if things aren't working or clicking for you. And, that's a great luxury that Michael Maguire's got, at his disposal there because, we know what a quality number 9 Ben Hunt can be. But I think he'll start back in the halves, and then if need be, you can sort of switch it around a little bit.
It's going to be an epic game on Thursday night when the Broncos take on the Bulldogs, a game you'll be able to see on Channel 9 this Thursday night. The other Brisbane team, the Dolphins, 16-2 down against the Melbourne Storm, and you're just thinking, okay, can they try to make it competitive? But they did more than that. That was just phenomenal how they put the Storm to the sword, Billy.
Yeah, 40 unanswered points is pretty competitive, isn't it? Yeah. I was thinking the same. We were calling the game, Salty, and after 20 minutes, it's 16-2, and not just 16-2. Melbourne were turning it on, scoring tries. They looked really sharp. And then they just hung in there, like the Dolphins have done over their 2.5 years since coming into the competition. They've hung in there. They completed a few sets. And, boy, I spoke about him before. Their halfback is on another level at the moment. He's playing so good. Some of the deception he has in his game is first class. I know Andrew Johns has spoken about him a whole heap, and he's been marvelling, what he's doing on the field. But to see what he did to the defensive line of the Melbourne Storm and how he manipulated it and created space for some of his strike players, they've got a footy player on their hands, and he's only 21 years old. If you're a Redcliffe Dolphin fan or in the administration, or if you're making decisions around the club, he'd be a guy that I'd be signing up for a long period of time and building a club around, because he's got all the attributes to be a 15-year NRL player at the top level.
Well, he's signed on till the end of the 2028 season. And the one thing, I'm glad you keep saying it, 21 years of age. When you hear him interviewed, I have him on my radio show, Wide World of Sports, quite regularly. He stands on the desk with you guys and Brace post-match. You just can't believe that he's 21. He's got a great head on his shoulders. He says that he's not so deserving of all the praise that people like yourself and Joey are giving him, because he's still finding his way in the NRL. I just love his perspective on things. Yeah, no, he's very humble. He's impressive when you sit there and you listen to him talk and you interviewing him. He's got that humility about him. He always talks about his teammates and what they do for him and his game. He's very appreciative. He looks like he's got a really good head on his shoulders. So even more to the point that, great reason to have those sort of guys around your club. They take on this week the Canberra Raiders in an away game, and the Raiders were good against the Titans. They're another team that came back from a deficit, Billy. So it'll be an interesting clash down in Nation's capital this week.
They're just flying under the radar, I think, the Raiders. They're just cruising along, chalking up wins. They're sitting in the top 4, the Raiders, and I don't think a whole heap of people have a huge opinion of the Raiders, but I'll tell you what, they're probably up with the Bulldogs, probably one of the hardest teams to play against, because they do it a different way. They do it their way, and they just keep chalking up the wins. Isn't their back rower Hudson Young having a season this year? And some of the tries that he's scoring, and the positions he's putting himself in the game. He's a real footy player. He understands the game, and you can see that in his performances.
Yeah, maybe Ricky should, Billy, what do you think, ring his good mate Laurie Daly and just say, mate, he's not going to be available for New South Wales this year. Hey, that'd be the fair thing to do, wouldn't it?
They've got quite a few back rowers to choose from, so a bit of a luxury there.
Yeah, that's true, and that won't be happening. Don't worry about that. But no, he's doing a great job. Is Hudson Young at the Raiders? That's for sure. Another side that's chalked up a few decent wins of late, including one a few weeks ago against the Melbourne Storm, and then recently on Thursday night against Manly at Brookie. The Dragons, Billy, they got a bit of a steely reserve about them under Shane Flanagan this year.
Yeah, they're the two teams, the Raiders and the Dragons, for me, that are just flying under the radar. And look, the Dragons, again, a lot of people mightn't have a huge opinion of the Dragons, but they've lost 3 games this year. The first game was to the Bulldogs by 8 points, and the other 2 games were by a field goal. So they're not playing their best football just yet, but they could very easily be undefeated, which is incredible. You wouldn't put that in the Dragons category, but it's not easy to go to Brookvale and win against Manly at the moment. I know they're not playing their best footy without Turbo there, but something about the Dragons. They're a little bit like the Raiders. They're just flying under the radar for me.
And like the Raiders, off the back of, they've got some good experienced players here in the team, especially those that they've recruited are playing well, like Val Holmes and and Damien Cook and the like. But it's some of these young forwards that are just grabbing the opportunity they've got to play in the NRL with both hands.
Yep, I agree. And they're local kids as well. Couchman, he looks like a real player, and I think his brother did his knee earlier this year. He's another player coming through for the Dragons. And is it Egan? Dylan Egan?
That's it. That's him.
Yeah, the young fella from Kiama. So they're bringing a lot of locals through, which is great. That when you get players that have grown up idolising their footy team and wanting to be a Dragon. They just have that deeper motivation, and it's good to have those young players come through.
Now, one question I want to ask about one of the games on the weekend, Saturday night, when we saw the Panthers beat the Roosters. Are the Panthers back, Billy? I know you're one person that said, look, you don't write this team off so early in the season, and it clicked for them against the Chooks.
Yeah, I don't know if they're back, but this was only a matter of time before they put it together. And unfortunately for the Roosters, they put it together against them. And, they got too many classy players. And on top of that, the club has got too many good habits in their footy team to not do this. The consistency is going to be the challenge for them. Now they've just broken that run of, I think it was 5 straight losses. Yep. So now they can just relax a little bit and just focus on their footy and not have that hanging over their head. So, it was good to see the Panthers back in the winner's circle. And, the typical players, the 7 and the 1 were exceptional. And that's what they're going to heavily rely on throughout the season if they're going to keep chalking up wins. Now,
earlier in the podcast, you spoke about Brisbane needing to sort out their attack. The Newcastle Knights are another team in that category, you would say. Billy, even though there were some green shoots against at times against the Sharks on Sunday, but if you were Adam O'Brien, what would you be doing at the moment at Newcastle in trying to kickstart their season?
It's a tough one. They're in a real hole at the moment, Newcastle. I'd be looking back to the early rounds because that's one thing that they did get right early is their attack. They were brilliant with the footy. They were bringing Kalen Ponga into the game. He was sort of the centre of their attack, and they were finding space all over the place. Now I don't know what's happened. I don't know whether it's the injuries and the continuity hasn't been there through the halves. They've had a few different halves partners over the last month, and they're just not clicking at the moment. But they're in a bit of a hole. So I don't know what's happening internally, but it's the season starts getting away from you pretty quick when you're playing like this.
Well, one player that they need to try to get back is Jack Cogger, and apparently a couple of the forwards that have been out are not too far away from coming back as well. But they've got a game over in New Zealand this week, and that'll be a big occasion, an Anzac Day clash, evening clash against the Warriors. And I think they've flown over today to this being Tuesday. So it's a big game for them coming up this week.
Yeah, absolutely, and they put plenty of fans in Mount Smart at the moment, and they're not an easy team to beat anywhere, but over in New Zealand, they're exceptionally hard. So yeah, that's a task and a half for them, not just to try and get back to their best, but they got to play a pretty tough opposition on their home soil.
Yeah, that's for sure. Billy, one of the talking points out of the weekend has been sin bins and what constitutes a sin bin and what doesn't. You look at Kelmatualangi opening tackle of the game in Monday's game against the West Tigers. No penalty. It was missed. He gets a 3-week suspension off the back of it. You'd think if it was found by the officials initially, it probably would have warranted a 10 in the bin. Iongi with his clash with Bullard deemed to be a professional foul, and so he was sent to the sin bin. There was other incidents over the course of the weekend as well. I know it's tough for the officials, but what's your take on a topic that's frustrating a lot of fans at the moment?
Yeah, I thought Isaiya Katoa, he wasn't far off getting it right. And I don't think it was actually a professional foul. Now, to me, a professional foul is deliberately playing outside the rules to stop someone from scoring a try. I thought that was a professional foul. And I didn't see that act as one. I would prefer them to err on the side of caution around sin bins. I'd much rather see a player stay on the field and get a week or two than actually go to the bin and go, oh, we got it wrong. It can affect the game quite harshly. And so, yeah, I think we're getting there. And for those two incidences, they're for different things. So we're looking at sin bins for high contact, but then we're looking at sin bins for professional fouls. So, they've got a pretty tough job, the match officials, and they do a pretty good job most of the time. I just prefer the sin bin not to be used as much as we are using it, and let the match review committee, deal with other things. So the obvious ones, yeah, sure. But then we start talking about the consistency side of it. So, I'd like to see 13 on 13 as much as possible.
If we are going to see more sin bins, and I understand it's not on the agenda, but would you like the NRL to consider revisiting what we had in the 80s and 90s in a 5-minute sin bin?
5 in the bin. Well, yeah, I'm not too sure. I if we look at the professional fouls, there are a whole heap of professional fouls when teams are defending their try line. So maybe even if it gets to the point you have to sit out off the back of the dead ball line for a whole set, even that could deter teams for slowing the ball down and giving repeat infringements away. But I'm not sure. I don't like changing the rules too much. I think there's already been a whole heap of them.
Yeah, there certainly has over the last few years. But it is certainly a talking point. That is for sure. This is the Billy Slater Podcast, and we're all doing it thanks to Tab.
Fans always ask, Loza, what was the best era of league? And I tell them, nothing beats the line-breaking, flick-passing, goose-stepping, Vegas-flying, turbo-try-scoring, origin drought-breaking, simply the best era of footy we're in right now. And with more market stats and insights, it's easy to enjoy the best era in footy with the best app in footy.
Tab. We're on.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Now, the Billy M Medal, our best player and best team from each week, thanks to Tab. I say it each week, Billy. How do you come up with one? And this is in both categories. So over to you, mate, for the Billy M Team of the Week.
Well, the Team of the Week and the player of the week are in the same jersey. So it's going to be the Dolphins. The Dolphins get the team of the week. To come back from 16-2 down against the Melbourne Storm and then put on 40 unanswered points, they're well and truly the team of the week. And their little number 7, their halfback, Isaiya Katoa, he's the player of the week. I watched him live. He was brilliant, and I thought he was the performance of the weekend.
He certainly is a star on the rise. What a game he had on Friday night, Isaiya Katoa. He is our Billy M medalist for this week. And well done to the Dolphins as well, our best team this week. And we do the Billy M medal, all thanks to Tab. The NRL season is here for the best time in sport. Tab has the best app in sport. Tab, we're on.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
All right, Billy, we're looking forward to the upcoming round, which is only a couple of days away in the NRL. So we look forward to kicking off Anzac round, always very special. Broncos up against Bulldogs on Thursday night. Then, of course, we've got the traditional Anzac clash on Friday, Roosters and Dragons. And then on Friday night, Storm and Rabbitohs. So a big week ahead.